Hey everyone, welcome back to Crypto Cash. Thank you for joining me here today. This is your one-stop shop for cryptocurrency analysis, among many other things. Now we're taking a look here today at AXS, which is Axie Infinity. Now I covered this, I think, 3 or 4 days ago when it first started going on its bull run. It's continued on and it's done very, very well. And I come to find out there's some really strong fundamentals going on. So I recommend you always do your own research. This is for educational purposes only. And I'm not a financial advisor. I just have years of trading experience. And my role here is to ensure that you trade for a lifetime and instead of just for one day, right? I'm going to give you some best practice to help you learn along the way. And if you'd like to join my Telegram community, feel free to join that. There's no charge there. Just got a good group of folks that really like to help educate, and we all learn together, right? That's why we're here. I also have a signal group through Patreon, 3 to 5 signals per week I send out, and I utilize all the things you're going to learn here today in order to find those signals. And these are trades that I'm taking that I share with my Patreon members. Okay, so check that out in your own time. But without further ado, let's just go ahead and get right to it. All right, folks, let's take a quick look at AXS, Axie Infinity, and we're going to take a look at Bitcoin and Ethereum first. So if you're new to the channel, we always look at those two coins before diving into the technicals, just because we need to understand specifically what's going on. Because obviously, the catalyst is Bitcoin for most all the movement, and oftentimes when coins move contradictory to Bitcoin, it's interesting to identify that. So we're going to look at the difference there. We're going to start with a 4-hour chart. So let's go ahead and take a look at Bitcoin. And this is TradingView desktop application, by the way. Great service, great platform. Recommend utilizing this above any and all desktop applications, essentially. This even works fantastic on the phone. It's almost exactly the same. So all your indicators carry over. It's just a really good format. I have a link in the description below for a discount if you'd like to reference that. But the bottom line is I'd recommend utilizing either Pro or Premium version just because you can have a lot of indicators available. Even though I only recommend 2 to 3 at a time, it still limits you to only 2 at one point with just the free version. So just check that out in your own time. But for now, again, Bitcoin, we're looking at the 4-hour chart, and this is essentially what we're looking at here. I'm going to enable the simple moving averages. First of all, I use the 200 and the 50. The 200 is this purple line here, and the 50 is the orange line. And right now at this point, Bitcoin is under the 50-day moving average, so it's temporarily working as a resistance. But commonly, if you look back here, you'll see oftentimes the 50-day moving average is tested multiple times, usually a good 4 or 5 4-hour time frames. In other words, somewhere in the range of 16 to 24 hours is the common time frame in which you test it and it gets rejected, and then it'll break through. Also note too that when it breaks through, look here, big surprise, 5 red candles or 3 red candles, basically 5 resisting lines right there, and it breaks through. Comes over here and it shoots down, shoots up, shoots down. I mean, it rarely will just kind of ease into the 50-day moving average. It'll typically jump straight through very hard, very fast. So if we come up here to test the 50 here soon, there's this chance that right around 33,000, what is that, 33,300, we're going to see a sharp increase straight through the resistance there instead of just kind of testing it and rejecting, right? Again, it could very well likely test and reject, which has done that many times, but if it breaks through, it'll break through pretty hard and pretty fast. As we can kind of see here, we've got generally normal amount of volume right now, nothing too different there. The 200 moving average is also working as a resistance, at least it was previously on the 4th of July. Here we are 10 days later, and it hasn't been tested yet. Okay, but just bear in mind we do have a resistance at about 36,500. There seems to be a channel of about 36,000 and 42,000 as major resistance levels. As we can see, 42,000 is up here, and then our major support is 30,000 at this point. It doesn't appear that the price wants to go any lower than that, but again, we don't know until we get there. So for right now, Bitcoin is kind of just doing its thing. It is making lower highs and lower lows right now. So if it continues on this trend, we'll see it come up and kind of trail off and go even lower, somewhere in the range of about 31,000. Hoping not, but that is kind of how it's trending right now based on just the overview here on the 4-hour chart. Moving on to Ethereum, take a look here. I mean, Ethereum is pretty much the same thing as Bitcoin right now, just worse. In other words, it's not responding very well to what it normally does. Oftentimes it takes a lot of market capitalization from Bitcoin when Bitcoin goes sideways, like we saw back here. But now it seems to be just kind of suffering a slow death. Unfortunately, not a lot. I would recommend kind of avoiding Ethereum for the moment just based on its lack of volatility. It did decrease here recently, but that was because of the sell-off from Bitcoin. but literally we've seen just a lot of strange sideways action from Ethereum. So it's kind of just nothing's happening right now. We might see it take off if Bitcoin can come up past 36,000, closer to 42. Then we'll see some action from Bitcoin, correction from Ethereum when again Bitcoin does better. But with all the sideways action from Bitcoin, people are concerned and not really investing their time and effort into Ethereum right now, which is unfortunate because it's typically the coin that absorbs a lot of market capitalization. Major resistance at 2,900, major support at 1,725. Moving on to Axie. Now, I looked at this one previously. I reviewed this a few days ago, so thank you again to my community for asking that I cover it. There are some really strong fundamentals, so please do your own research. That's the main reason why it doesn't retrace as well as it should, or I would say as low as it normally should, honestly, because this type of increase without significant consolidation can cause problems. In other words, let's take a look at the one-day chart, and you'll see what I mean by this here. So first of all, let's just quickly identify how Bitcoin influenced AXS, right? Axie. And the bottom line, obviously, is it's not influencing it right now. Okay, so obviously there's some fundamentals, catalyst that's driving the price straight up. But beforehand, let's just quickly identify what happened. So April 17th, first major Bitcoin sell-off. That's right here. We kind of saw a bit of a red candle, and it corrected itself a day or two later. Then the 22nd was another major sell-off. That came back down. Normal stuff. The 25th was a ramp back up for Bitcoin. And of course, we saw a typical retracement here, about 50%. And then, of course, the Elon candle set things into motion here on the 12th, and then the China candle here on the 18th. And it pretty much just reached a state of consolidation for almost about 5 weeks. And then in the last week and a half, 2 weeks, we've seen Axie just take off completely. Now, the first indication of a buy signal would have been this convergence here, right in the range of about, the 26th of June. That would have been a good entry point. Again, it's easy said than done, right? Because obviously hindsight's 2020, but that is essentially what you want to look for on the one-day chart when there's a convergence. This would have been another example of that. However, see again, it's just that constant state of consolidation from Bitcoin, and it didn't have to take off, didn't need to. Granted, it did the same thing recently as well, so honestly it's hard to say specifically what happened, but without those fundamentals, you're going to see some sideways action from a lot of coins, but Axie does have some type of strong fundamental catalyst right now. Furthermore, the one-day chart has been hovering over 70 for, that's almost a full 2 weeks now, basically 11 days. So that basically just tells us that it's overextended, overbought, and should retrace back down. That's the normal sentiment. That's what normally should happen. But again, when there's some fundamentals that are just out of this world, which I'm fairly confident these are. I did some brief research on this. There's some really interesting things that you can do with this token. Check it out, of course, but there's a good chance that we're going to see the price continue to increase just based on that alone. But this bull run has been pretty good, right? If you look at this here, first of all, even though, yes, it is retracing somewhat, we can see it came up and came back down here, up and down again. The bottom line here is that we've got, if on the one-day chart, we've got a good one solid red candle in between each one of these bull runs. So look at this. We got about 5 days of a bull run there. Sharp, a pretty good increase of about 135%, and then it retraced back down about 40%. Then next 2 trading days there, price comes up another 100%. Then we got one full 24-hour period of retracement. The following day, we have another increase of approximately 70% between the next 3 days. So 3 days, we got 70% higher, and then the price retraces down again with just 1 day, right? So at this rate, we should expect to see 1 or 2 more trading days in the green, followed by a short period of consolidation. So that's kind of how a normal good bull run is supposed to be, to work, where we got increase, retrace, consolidation, rinse and repeat. Just continues that process. So these are all good signs here for Axie. In other words, I think there's a good chance it should continue to increase. Again, only based on the fact that there are some fundamentals that are driving the price. Normally, I would say to be cautious, hold on to your britches, and just be careful, of course, because when you see this kind of movement, it's just a matter of time before it comes crashing back down, right? That's traditionally how it goes. This reminds me of BNB back in April after Bitcoin had retraced significantly at the very first time. BNB went on a run for like 2 weeks straight where it increased 20 to 30% per day, and it looked almost identical to this. So I do think this will reach a point of exhaustion. It has to, but it's still finding its average true range. Its average true range is definitely not in the range of what, $5 to $10, which it should be, because this is how it was performing before Bitcoin sold off. There's obviously something pushing the price up. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at the 4-hour chart really quick here. Just to note, prices obviously above both moving averages. RSI, take a look at this here. This is the cool thing about this. You see how the RSI comes up over 70 and comes back down? It's kind of hovering up here. Now, in case you're not familiar, there is basically anything over 55, it's like a common resistance, or correction, support. If you're over 55 in the RSI, it works as kind of a support level. You see how it's kind of humming up? Every time it tries to come down to 55, it keeps coming up. That's kind of an indication of a strong bull run. It basically means the bulls are in control, right? Because even though it goes over 70, well over 70, I think it hit, what, 85, 88 back here? That doesn't matter. It comes down. That's where these retracements and the consolidation periods are helping. So that's again another confirmation of a good solid bull run. All right. Now, as far as the 1-hour chart, what we want to look at, and this is probably gonna just kind of answer everything for us. It's probably gonna be pretty straightforward, but we have to look at the Ichimoku cloud to kind of see what's going on here. Because anytime you consider taking entry, you want to consider taking entry when the price is above the cloud. Well, crazy thing about this, it's pretty much been above the cloud almost the entire time. Okay, so if you're going to consider taking entry, right, you can see how the price comes up, retraces. Let's go ahead and take a closer look here. If you're to consider taking entry right now, you want to be cautious, obviously, of the fact that it could go sideways a little further. It probably will, as a matter of fact, but just say it were to come down, and eventually touch the cloud. Wait for it to come back up above the cloud and then consider taking entry. Because if you look at hindsight here, right, see consolidation period? It's still above the cloud, yes, but once it broke above pretty strong, then it's a consideration of a buy signal. Okay, now again, the Ichimoku cloud works more favorably when there's different periods, when it doesn't have just a constant bull run, because the cloud, it's designed to kind of show you periods of exhaustion, right? Well, there's not really much exhaustion going on right now because the fact that the price, it ramps up, it retraces a little bit and just goes sideways, then keeps doing the same thing over again. So normally you can use the cloud in a scenario to identify entry points, but at this point in time, as you can kind of see, when it breaks above, it's obviously a buy signal, but it's not really having any time to break below. Okay, so this would have been a sell signal normally, right here, but really there's not much that we can see there. It broke down below and kind of held above. So I know I'm probably speaking in circles here for you if you're not familiar with the cloud. It's just anytime there's a break above the cloud, it's considered a buy signal. When it's below, it is considered a sell signal. This hasn't given us any indication it wants to break below and stay below. So the cloud is kind of almost null and void at this point. All right. Let's take a quick look at TD sequential. This would probably be a better one to identify because this really helps us understand, exhaustion and length of time. In other words, with TD sequential, what it does, it takes a look at the fourth bar prior to the current bar, and if it's closing above that previous time frame, then it starts adding to that total. So right now you can see here, look at it went 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then this one was lower than this one back here, so it reset and it's counting back up again. And what that does, it's basically telling us periods of consolidation, or correction, sorry, periods of exhaustion. And you look back here, there's really hardly any state of exhaustion. There's one right here. I mean, let's take a quick look at that. There's a 9 where it reset, and essentially, as you can kind of tell, it continued on, started counting upwards, and then it went on its bull run after that. Now, TD sequential, there's a lot of moving parts, and I'm just barely just touching on it right now because it's helpful to know the general concept, but there's a lot more to it than what I'm explaining here. So just bear in mind that what you're looking for is a 9, right? So if we turn this on and we look at the 1-hour chart, once we see a 9, we might see a likelihood of it retracing back down. Okay, it's kind of what I look for. Again, you don't want to make all your decision based on this one indicator alone. Use everything that we've used so far in conjunction, but just based on that metric, it doesn't look like it has any sign of exhaustion. Again, and the main reason why is because it keeps coming up and it keeps consolidating. Increase consolidation, increase consolidation. It's like the perfect bull run that you could ask for. So I mean, based on everything we've seen so far, there's no reason why AXS will continue to slow down. I mean, I do feel like it's got to slow down some point, obviously, because how high can it really go? But on the same accord, it should likely continue to increase. It's giving us no indication that it's wanting to retrace at this point. All right, so we're going to take a quick look at the 15-minute chart, and this is kind of just going to just quickly point out the EMA and the VWAP. So if you're new to the channel, the VWAP is the blue line here. It's a volume weighted average price. It takes the volume last 24 hours, expresses it as a price. All right, so that being said, if we see this line here, this is basically considered a consistent support and resistance line. As you can tell, when it's on its bull run, it's working as a support. It gets tested here and rejects and continues upwards. Same thing happens over here as well with the EMA. It broke the EMA but stayed above VWAP. So that's an indication of basically a bull run, or the bulls are in control. Now right here, you can see how it kind of just jumps up and down. That's not a case in point where you want to try to consider taking entry, just based on the fact that it's a period of consolidation. But what you do want to look for is two solid green bars above EMA and VWAP. And just to clarify too, the EMA line is an exponential moving average. I use that on shorter time frames because it's more effective. And this is the EMA 15. Instead of the 9 or the 20, I use the 15. It kind of just blends the average between the two, so I have less indicators on the charts. But what it does basically just tells me when the price is above, it's considered a bullish run, and when it's below, it's considered bearish. Now, again, periods of consolidation, it's going to hover between the two. But when it's actually doing its thing and it's running like this, it's going to come up, it's going to test, it's going to keep going. All right, so it tested the EMA line, stayed above. Tested the EMA, stayed above. Period of consolidation, testing EMA, but stayed above VWAP. So to me, good confirmation is looking for the price to be above EMA and VWAP, because we want to join the trade when the bulls are in control, right? You're not going to try to chase the bottom. You're not going to try to find that, because that's nearly impossible. What you want to do is you want to identify once the bottom's already been touched and continuing past that point with higher highs and higher lows. Well, this chart's basically telling us there's consistent higher highs and higher lows. Obviously, this period of consolidation, we don't see that, but look, higher high, higher low, higher high, higher lows. So strong indication of the fact that the bulls are still in control. Okay, so if you're going to consider taking entry here, what I highly recommend doing is being very, very careful, obviously, about how the price is moving. First of all, when you take an entry, be sure to set a stop target that's priority number one. Just because the fact that this is, in my opinion, extremely overinflated, the price, we don't know what its average true range is, or what it's truly capable of, what price it should be valued at, like what's a good value for Axie. We don't know, it's still finding its value, right? So when it's doing that, as you continue to make profits, just say you took entry at $20 and you're up at 23, set your stop limit at 22, so that way you're still in the green if it retraces and comes back down. Yes, you might get stopped out, but you still take profit. That's the key takeaway here, right? Don't get greedy, especially with something like this, because it very well could come crashing back down, because there's a strong chance that this type of price action, there is somebody outside of people like you and I that are controlling the market, right? Anytime I see this kind of movement when Bitcoin's going sideways and or retracing itself, it tells me that something's in control. It's definitely not, the average Joe, if that makes sense, right? So that's all the more reason to create and set a stop limit. But I mean, my prediction here, I would say, is that it's going to continue until it stops. That sounds stupid and terrible. And it does sound ridiculous, because how can you identify how high this is going to go based on the situation itself? So what I always recommend doing in these situations is, if had I been invested in Axie Infinity, I would have done my own research above and beyond the technicals. So look at the fundamentals, see what's going on there. If you feel like it's a very good opportunity, which it likely is based on what it's done so far, then you should invest and continue to hold and see where it goes. Just start, just keep moving your sell stop or your sell limit as the price increases, right? Because it's retracing, but it's not retracing super hard. I mean, look, it went up to just say 15 and came back down to 1150. Went up to 1950 and then back down to 16. So, when you see those kind of numbers, if you got in at just say at 20 and the price at 24, I'd move your sell stop to the most recent the most recent high. Okay, so here's a good little rule of thumb to move your sell stop. Find the previous I would, the previous high, right? Not the all-time high, of course, which is all-time high here in this case, but just say the most recent high, which is this guy here, right at about 22.33. See how it hit there and it rejected twice, but then it came down here and it rejected as well as a support. So that's the most recent support, previous resistance. That would be the case in point where you want to move your sell stop to a point just below that. So like 10 cents below that. Okay. And as it keeps making higher highs and higher lows, keep moving to that most, the most recent previous high / current low, right? So the most recent support. Okay. That's the way you want to stay safe. That's how you're going to want to invest in something like this. Because honestly, giving a prediction on something like this can be very challenging. I mean, I predict it's going to continue to increase, but where and how long and how soon, that's beyond me. I would say only the ones who are controlling the market right now are the ones that know that, right? Anyways, so that's all I have for you here today. I hope you did find benefit. I know I did ramble a lot, but hopefully you find some good tools to utilize here. Just be careful, just be cautious, and ensure you always have a stop, a sell stop or a stop limit there in place to ensure you're still profitable and you don't lose out, right? Because there's nothing worse than losing, putting money on the table and just letting it go to waste. You're wasting good money. Start trimming, start getting some money out if you can. Because I don't foresee this going on forever. I mean, this stuff doesn't happen for this long normally, okay? It will come back down eventually. So just be cautious, be aware, move your sell stop, and be safe. But minus that, hopefully you have a good rest of your day. Really appreciate your time. Be sure to reference my Telegram community if you haven't already, my Signal group as well through my Patreon account if you'd like 3 to 5 signals per week, where I utilize all the strategies we just looked at to make an informed decision before I take entry, and I share those entries with you. So I hope you have a good rest of your day. Thanks again so much for your time. We'll see you in the next one. Take care.